The question is, can you describe your vision for yourself as a teacher, learner, and member of the educational community at large? My vision for myself as a teacher is to model an attitude of always wanting to learn and always wanting to grow. There are several ways that I plan on doing that. I want to practice articulating my strengths. That can be really difficult for me. I want to practice giving myself the grace to articulate my strengths, but also to embrace the areas of growth that I have. I want to show students that it's okay to be excited about the strengths that you do have, and that's a great thing to be and to feel, to carry yourself on, but also to encourage growth in maybe some weaker areas or areas for opportunity and for growth. I also want to practice implementing self-care. That's one of my visions as a teacher, is to model what self-care can look like as an adult, as a learner, as a community member. I want to model that for my students. I also want to practice asking questions. I used to think I was comfortable asking questions whenever I needed to, but I find that it still can be really difficult for me to admit that I need help or that I don't know something. So I'm eager to continue practicing that. And again, model that for my students. I also want to model that humility and introspection. I think it's so important to practice that self-reflection constantly and over long periods of time as well. I've had the opportunity to reflect over my past 4 years at university, and being able to see, kind of step back and look at the growth that I've had over those 4 years has been really beneficial and is really motivating me to continue on. I also want to respond to student needs as best as I can. And through that, I will always be learning more, always researching more, studying more, trying new strategies, doing what I can to better serve my students. I don't know the best way right now, and I will constantly be striving to figure that out, try new things and see what will work best. But I know that teaching is not an end game sort of career. I will never arrive or become the educator I want to be. Instead, I can always be growing, always be striving to learn more and add more strengths and skills to my belt. And that's my goal. That's my goal in my career, is to always be growing and always be achieving. This question asks, what strengths do you bring to this job? Some of my strongest qualities, I believe, are my willingness and eagerness to learn. I'm always looking for more opportunities to grow myself, to improve my character, my academic skills, my practice, my instruction. I'm always looking for ways to improve that. And that helps me keep an open mind to new ideas and perspectives and challenges. And I love being able to find new ways to practice adapting to new ideas. I'm very excited to do that in my classroom. And of course, model that kind of attitude to my students. I think being adaptable and being ready for change and new experiences is one of the most important attitudes that you can have as a learner. And I'm really excited to practice that in my own classroom and share that with my students. I also know that one of my strengths is a variety of experience. I spent one semester of my student teaching in a 5th and 6th grade combo classroom in a GATE, a gifted and talented classroom. And I loved working with that age group and those kinds of learners. And then I've spent this past semester student teaching in a rural school in Donnelly Elementary in a 1st grade classroom. And I actually was the long-term substitute for the last 10 weeks of the semester, 12 weeks of the semester, sorry. So I've had a lot of experience truly being on my own already without having really done my first year yet. And I've been able to develop some online curriculum. I have been responsible during IEP meetings with parent communication, conferences. I've helped with some school community events. Working at Donnelly Elementary has given me a really great insight to what a small and strong community can look like, and I'm eager to take some of those experiences on to wherever I am next. I believe that that sense of community has so much power in a learning community, and I'm really excited to help develop that with wherever I am next. I also know that one of my skills is my experience with struggle and failure. A lot of challenges that I take on, I do not succeed at. And while that can feel heartbreaking sometimes in the moment. Ultimately, I'm grateful for the learning that happened. I know that when I fail, it actually is a win. I'm learning, I'm gaining that learning experience, and all of the mistakes I made or choices I made, I now have that understanding under my belt, and I can take that experience into my next step or the next time I come across a situation like that. And I'm really grateful for all of those learning experiences. I think I think it's important to view those as gains instead of losses, and I'm excited to practice that in my classroom. I think one of my biggest strengths, though, is my passion for serving students, for serving them. I care a lot about my students. I know all educators do. Sometimes I care in ways that can make it difficult to separate work from home, and that's something that I'm working on. But I really enjoy getting to care for the young learners that I work with. It's truly my pleasure to get to work with them and learn alongside them, and it's one of the most joyful things I've ever done. So I think that's a strength of mine also, just really truly enjoying that, and I can't wait to do that for the rest of my career. So those are probably my greatest strengths that I could bring to this job. The next prompt states, please provide examples of what you have done across your college experience that has prepared you to fill this role. There are several experiences I can think of. I'll touch on a few. The greatest experience that I've had is the classroom experience I've had over the course of these 4 years at university. Every semester, I've been able to work in a classroom for an extended period of time. Even my first semester as a college freshman, I had a professor really encourage me to walk right into a classroom to start right away and start gaining that experience, working with different students at different schools, different districts, teachers, classrooms, everything. Really gain a wider view of what classroom teaching can look like. So even from my first semester, I've worked or volunteered in a classroom serving all types of students, and I think that vast array of experience really supports my preparation for a job like this. I know that another example that I have is my long-term sub position. I'm finishing that up now. I'm teaching through the rest of the school year, and I've been able to be the adult responsible officially, not just with a mentor teacher supporting me, but in fact it is just me working in that classroom as the first grade teacher. And our school is quite small. We're in rural Donnelly, and I'm the only first grade teacher in the school. So I've been able to practice building up instruction strategies and working through sort of pre-planned curriculum and really enhancing parts that I like and supplying additional materials where I think they're needed. I've been able to practice that in all content areas for the past 12 weeks, and I'm really excited to keep working on that in different grade levels or different classrooms in the future. That's been a really positive example or experience that has helped prepare me for this role. Also, even my semester studying abroad, when I studied abroad in Uruguay in South America, I was able to work at an orphanage doing some English language support for learners there, which was a lot of fun and a completely different experience. I was much more out of my comfort zone there, but that's what made it so exciting and so eye-opening to practice that somewhere where I wasn't calm and cool and collected. Instead, I was kind of on my toes a bit more than normal, and that was a really great way for me to practice serving students in a unique environment. During my time at university, I also was involved in our student organization, the Teacher Education Ambassadors. I served as the president for that organization for 1 year, and we focused on building community between our college campus and local schools, local P12 classrooms across the valley. It was a lot of fun. We did all sorts of things, art nights, STEM nights, campus tours for classes or whole grade levels, a lot of really fun events. But I was able to practice networking and connecting professionally with other educators across the valley, and still was able to work with students who weren't necessarily in my classroom, but instead I could develop relationships with all kinds of students all across districts. And finally, another example of something I've done in my college experience is research, undergraduate research. I've been able to be a part of this up-and-coming research program in the College of Education, You Create, and I get to come alongside new researchers. We call them emerging teacher researchers, students who are just beginning their journey as a researcher, and I can help them as my role as a near peer. I get to support them in all stages of research and share my experience having done research in the past. I'm really excited to continue that kind of research throughout my career. I know it's really important to continue practicing that attitude of learning, getting new information. I will never finally know everything. There's always new information. There's always something that I don't know, and I'm really excited to continue practicing research, and that my time at university prepared me to take on that attitude. Questions 4 and 5 ask, what professional goals do you have for yourself in your first year of teaching, and how can we support you in reaching those goals? How can you help yourself? One of the goals that I have for my first year of teaching is to create a classroom environment where students are comfortable taking risks and learning through mistakes or failures, and really just embracing that growth. By doing this, I hope to encourage students to take more risks and feel safer doing so, and know that that's what we do to learn, is sometimes we make mistakes and we grow from that. To reach that goal, I hope to start my classroom by co-creating classroom expectations with my students. I don't want to say what the list of rules are. Instead, I'll have suggestions, but I really want to work together with students about what they think fair expectations for behavior, assignments, group projects, all of those things. I want us to work together, and so they are invested in that process, and they are holding themselves accountable to those behavior expectations. I also want to celebrate being curious. I want to celebrate students who ask questions, are eager to learn, who take risks so that they can encourage their peers to do the same. I also want to incorporate a lot of reflection, encourage students to be introspective and reflect back on their learning and their growth, and what steps they'd like to take, make goals. I really want to work on that self-awareness with my students also. I hope to celebrate student examples of this sort of attitude, but also incorporate historical or current examples from news or pop culture, or things that they can relate to or they're aware of. I want to incorporate that in the materials that we're learning, and just really normalize that attitude so we can all be more familiar and more comfortable with being brave enough to learn that way. I also really want to continue observing other teachers and other strategies, methods, instructional perspectives. I really want to observe more and more, and also receive feedback on my own teaching. Have my team who I'm working with be able to observe me and give me some feedback. I would really love to work on some sort of system or schedule or something with my team. That's something that I will need help with. I would love to implement a reasonable amount of observations and feedback and debriefs, so we can all be encouraging each other to become stronger educators. I also want to continue implementing research-based strategies for my instruction. Often I will feel like I could just go with my gut, but I want to push back against that and acknowledge that sometimes I can have gut feelings, and sometimes those can have positive effects, but I really want to base my instructional decisions on researched methods and strategies, and I'd really like to share those findings, share that experience with my team as well. I also want to practice asking for help, asking my mentor teacher, the principal, asking my teammates for help when I need it. During my student teaching year, sometimes I would feel like I was trapped between either asking every question that I had, and some of those might feel silly to ask, or asking no questions at all and just trying to figure it out myself. So I'm eager to continue practice, finding the balance there, asking appropriate questions, but also sometimes just being brave enough to go for it. At other times, I'm really eager to practice that, and I will need some help practicing that and being reminded that I have support to answer some of those questions too. So that's something I'll need help with. Some ways that I can help myself is to hold myself accountable for some regular reflection. That has been really beneficial at my time at university. Having assignments that were reflection-based really held me accountable, but now I get to practice holding myself accountable and encourage myself to continue reflecting on my teaching practice and on my growth as an educator and as a learner. So that's one way I'm excited to help myself achieve these goals.